Welcome to another episode of Engineering Tomorrow. I am your host, Brian Gomsky. Today we are talking about one of the most overlooked parts of an engineering and construction project. Stick around and find out.
From the heartland of America, the gateway to the West, this is Engineering Tomorrow, the podcast, keeping you entertained and in the know on the latest commercial and industrial heating, cooling, and water treatment technologies.
Jim Thaley, welcome to the Engineering Tomorrow podcast. How are you doing today?
Not too bad, man. Thanks for having me out.
No problem. So this is our, 11th or 12th or 13th episode. What do you think of our setup here?
Yeah, it's pretty nice. I definitely like the office. It's pretty cool for sure.
So for those of you who can't see, which is everyone, our first episode, we started with a USB microphone, one mic, and we were all gathered around it. It was echoey. It sounded like we were talking out of a tin can. I would say we're pretty close to where we want to be here. So we've got 4 studio mics. Everyone's got headphones. We've got a mixer. And hopefully if anyone's starting the podcast from scratch, you're going to see from the beginning episode to now, all the production quality, how it goes up and up every time we to do an episode here.
Well, hopefully I don't disappoint you in the context for today.
No, I have a lot of faith in you. So today we have an interesting show, and I want to talk about in my opinion, one of the most overlooked pieces of any major or even minor construction projects, which is logistics and transportation. We have expensive equipment that needs to get from point A to point B. There are a lot of moving parts and pieces that need to happen for that to work. Otherwise, everyone's losing time and everyone's losing money. The customer is getting frustrated, and everyone ends up looking bad if everything doesn't work properly.
Yeah.
So, Jim, tell me a little bit about your company, how it started, and how you specifically, your company is solving the challenges of logistics in commercial HVAC equipment.
Sure. So it's pretty simple. We were started by a mechanical rep agency back in 2002. So our sole purpose is to help out the mechanical rep and alleviate some of the hardships that you just simply described when trying to do a startup on a job. I think it would take any rep out there about 10 seconds to think of a project that went south on the 11th hour because material either A, arrived damaged, B, short, C, late, or, even D, not at all.
Right.
So with that being said, it's important to take the logistics into consideration.
Sure.
In any given scope that could take years to receive a PO on, and then you have 4 to 8 weeks of lead time from the manufacturer to fabricate the material that you're purchasing.
Sure.
You've kind of gone off and done your own thing until you get that phone call from the contractor on site or from the end user saying, "Hey, my stuff showed up," or "Hey, my stuff never showed up. What am I supposed to do? I got a crew out here waiting to do an install and I can't do it today."
Sure.
So unless the mechanical rep is going to take ownership of that, you can't expect any different results until you actually consider what it actually involves in transporting the product that you sold from the manufacturer's facility to the end user.
Sure.
So, what we do is we try to look at the big picture. We're not always going to be the cheapest option. But we're going to provide a solution that is catered towards your needs. I joke with my family so much about Amazon Prime because I feel like all of a sudden we click a button and something shows up on our doorstep the next day. Well, that's not how it really works, though.
Right.
There's a lot more to it, and I'm sure you guys understand. And when you're dealing with a manufacturer and trying to get a specific build item and the fabrication that it's involved on, you don't want to select the cheapest freight option to transport it from the facility in North Tonawanda
Right.
to, Dallas, Texas.
Sure.
There needs to be a little bit more care and consideration over what it was and what the implications could be if it wouldn't arrive when it's supposed to arrive. So that's what our group specializes in, looking at what any given project is going to entail.
Sure. So sensitive equipment getting there from point A to point B correctly. In my mind, what would separate you is you're not moving bags of chips. You're not moving Pepsi. And it's a lot more complicated than that. And
yeah, absolutely. And I'm not going to go into all the details with the big companies out there.
Sure.
There's a lot of third-party logistics companies, the world's largest third-party logistics companies out there that do amazing work. They move volumes and volumes and volumes of Pepsi and Anheuser-Busch from Buskey Warehouse to Walmart to this to that. Truckloads every day. You guys are not selling truckloads of material every day.
Sure.
So the care that goes into transporting your truckload of material needs to be more than the individuals that are simply moving pallets of Anheuser-Busch from St. Louis to a Walmart distribution center.
Sure.
Because the implications for you personally are much more severe, whether or not you buy one item off the grocery store shelf versus another item off the grocery store shelf. So, with that being said, that's why I feel that is an important aspect to always have price in the back of your mind.
Sure.
But always understand that you get what you pay for. And especially when it comes down to, transportation as well. So, and, there's, our group always jokes, there's three things that any service industry, or any rep can sell. There's on price, there's on service, or it's on quality. And you can only usually get two of those.
Right.
So it's kind of, which do you want?
Sure.
So I think, what we always try to drive is a competitive price, but at the service and quality that you guys need.
Sure. In an ideal scenario, when should someone get you involved in the project to ensure that this goes smoothly?
So we can be involved in any step. I look at submittals all day long. So if you're pricing out a specific heat exchanger and you just need a budget price to submit to the end user, I'm happy to throw one in there that's a tangible number for you to present. If it's something that's an afterthought, then, you already got that purchase order, freight was prepaid and that, and you just need that final number, by all means, give me a call. Again, we were founded by a mechanical rep. So we get the process. We often look at scopes, year after year. It's funny how in February we look at the same project that we've been chasing for the last 9 years, because eventually they're going to have to buy something, is the joke. So, it's a good question, but it's whatever is going to fit effectively within your model.
Sure.
So
how does the pricing work and what factors go into that? I would imagine it would be complicated based on the size of equipment we're moving.
Yeah.
How does that work?
So, anyone in freight is going to look at your DIMS, length, width, height, and weight. Ultimately, that's what is going to dictate how much it costs to ship something.
Okay.
Just those little aspects.
Okay.
But for our industry, it's important to identify a few steps down a few other aspects of it. So are we looking at delivering to a job site in downtown Chicago at 7 a.m. on a Saturday? Well, there's more than just length, width, and height and weight taken into that consideration. Or is it simply going to a distribution center or a mechanical rep shop that's open 7 to 5 Monday through Friday? So those aspects will dictate price associated with what the scope is actually involved. And it's imperative that information is thought of, during the bid process.
Sure.
Because there's any number of variables that can come into a factor when accurately bidding a scope.
Mm-hmm.
So,
what are some of the potential things that could happen on a job if all the factors aren't considered, like maybe having the wrong type of truck or stuff like that? Like, what are the things that need to be considered when we're moving this equipment?
Every contractor out there wants stuff delivered on a flatbed.
Sure.
I don't know anybody that doesn't want one on a flatbed. You just go grab it from the side, set it on the roof. Oh, I got a lull, I got a crane scheduled, no big deal. Pick it and drop it.
Yep.
50% of the manufacturers say absolutely not. There's no product, no product out there you can properly strap it to a flatbed and travel it safely across the country.
Yeah.
So it's kind of finding that middle ground to figure out what aspects, are, encountered. Your question is what other problems there are, just timing is everything pretty much. Are we against the clock? Before this, I just got off the phone with a mechanical rep that was trying to schedule a project at a university.
Mm-hmm.
So he's obviously under the wire,
Sure.
as they all are. They have a specific window that they need to complete the project in, and they're waiting on materials. So we can review any given scope or, any given solution once material is available, but knowing what the time frame that we're going up against is imperative.
Sure.
So
I don't want to put words in your mouth, but from what I'm hearing, it sounds like these shipments where things are in a pinch and they're complex, that's like right in your wheelhouse and things that you can figure out.
Absolutely.
So you're going to, in any business, you're going to have different levels of service. You're going to have the cheap guy who's not going to answer the phone. You're not going to know where your shipment is.
Yeah. And
it gets there at some point.
Right.
And then everywhere in between that.
And we can be the cheap guy too.
Mm-hmm.
I try not to have as many headaches every day as somebody else.
Sure.
So I prefer to do it the right way. And, and sometimes the right way is a cheap way.
Sure.
But it just depends on what your level of involvement or tolerance is to issues.
Mm-hmm.
We deliver gear reducers, standard ground all day, every day, 2-day transit time, picks and delivers with no problems. It works out perfectly. Same thing, boilers, whatever, pumps, doesn't matter. It just depends on who the end user is and what the scope of the project is too. It's simple to deliver a heat exchanger or a pump to a manufacturer's facility. Sure. But try to explain to a hospital that, yes, you are supposed to be receiving this pump. Yes, you actually do need this at your facility.
Right.
I do understand that this does not look like anything that you've ever received before in your entire life, but it does belong to you. Trust me. That is another big obstacle that we always have to face in the mechanical rep world.
Really?
Yeah.
I never thought about that.
So it's very funny and interesting, the conversations that you have with consignees, because they'll say, no, this is not what we do. I don't.
Wrong place.
I'm a hospital. What do I need with this? Exactly. Trust me, you need it.
How do you track the equipment gets picked up from point A? How are you tracking that once it leaves the originator to the destination?
Sir, so, in this day and age, we're filled with technology all around us.
Mm-hmm.
UPS tracking numbers, everyone's looked at them 100 times.
Sure.
LTL shipments all have pro numbers assigned to them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, since in 2018, the Department of Transportation mandated ELDs.
What's that? What is ELD?
Electronic data log.
Okay.
So no more paper logs. So your truck driver is a computer basically in his truck that identifies his hours of operation, and there's no fudging the numbers anymore. So you get stopped, you're over your hours. It's all right there. There's no erasing what you've done. Okay. With that also comes with the GPS tracking.
Got it.
So if you say you say you were at some place, there's no getting around it.
Right.
So most carriers will allow individuals to have access to that information.
Sure.
They're not going to give it away to anybody and everybody, but working with individuals that have access to that information that can give you GPS updates along the way is excellent.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the perks of the ELDs out there. So I think, partnering with a logistics provider that's going to be able to give you those updates along the way is imperative. Anybody will have access to some tracking information through the big companies such as FedEx, UPS, RNL, ABF. But when you get into the hot shots and the full truckloads, it's just working with a partner that has access to that information.
Okay. What other considerations do you take into account when you're transporting a load from A to B?
Yeah, so it's really the carrier that does it all the work.
Sure.
At the end of the day, you and I can play into the nth degree,
mm-hmm.
but eventually we're going to turn the keys over to a driver.
Okay.
And it's his responsibility to take it from the manufacturer's facility to the end user.
Yep.
And, there's a lot of hardships involved with that. We try to take more ownership of that process by operating our own truck, our own 40-foot hotshot gooseneck, looking to add more because that line of communication is imperative.
Uh-huh.
We're always partnering with top-tier carriers to ensure that we have access to that GPS tracking. We have the driver's cell phone number. We know exactly where it's at in transit. And we know if there was an issue that encountered. Well, all that, is easier if you are driving the truck yourself or if you have your own employee doing it.
Right.
You would hope that that level of communication is on top, superior than outsourcing it to somebody else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, if you get in any business, if you've got the right team, you've got the right people on your team, they understand what's going on, they understand this industry, they're going to put a lot more care into ensuring
exactly
that thing gets where it needs to go on time instead of taking hour lunches, stopping, every half hour, go to the bathroom. And
right. It's just like anything else. If there's many reps out there that partner with a specific contractor because and you trust them. I mean, that's the same thing with the freight and logistics industry too. I mean, you have certain partners out there that you trust because, 9 times out of 10, they're going to deliver what they say they're going to deliver when they say they're going to deliver it.
Yep.
It's always developing those relationships though, and it's always trying to stay on top of it to ensure that no one's slacking off along the way.
Mm-hmm.
That's the key, though, is finding the right person that's going to deliver it.
Sure. What other, if any, services do you offer that people might not even know about?
So, again, taking the fact that we were founded by a mechanical rep agency, we have a 40,000 square foot facility here that we operate out of. Our cornerstone has been cooling towers from day one.
Sure.
So, anyone who's worked on cooling towers knows that you have parts coming from all different corners of the country. Usually, your mechanicals are fabricated in a different facility than your fill, than your casing, so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
So, what we do is consolidate all those items here at our facility for the reps. We wrap it up in a nice little pretty bow, and we send it all out to the job site for one delivery at one time.
Mm.
So in terms of job cost elimination, we pay our warehouse employees to check in all the material, confirm quality, confirm quantity, and once it's complete, we send it out. So it's another huge aspect of our business.
Yep.
And we find it extremely, beneficial to the rep to utilize it when the job would allow it.
Sure.
So I say when the job would allow it. It takes time to move material from one facility to another facility, then to an end user.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to build it into your scope of work on the upfront. So when you ask about the bidding process earlier today, it's kind of important to take that aspect into consideration when we're pricing it out.
Sure.
So, if you're just, again, for an example, we're doing another job at a university where you have a tight window of installation. You can only shut down the tower for so long, but we do have time available to us from when the material is going to be released to when the job is actually going to start.
Mm-hmm.
So in that aspect, it could be very beneficial to bring all those little boxes and those pallets of fill and those, crates full of sheet metal to our facility. So then when the job is starting, we can deliver all the material on site at one time.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're not playing seek and find across a campus to find your float valve that goes with your nozzles, that you're looking for a gearbox and a motor and your fill.
Sure.
So it's one more, concept that we rolled out that I think is extremely beneficial.
Can you provide any tips for reps or anyone even seeking your services of things to do that will just make their lives a lot easier in the long run when it comes to getting this equipment where it needs to be at the right time?
Yeah, I would always say just look at, who's buying it.
Okay.
Number one, are you bidding it directly to an end user or are you bidding it through a contractor?
Okay.
So did your contractor reach out to you to get a number on XYZ, or are you talking to the end user directly?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that is going to play a factor in it. I mean, we're always kind of looking 2 steps ahead.
Sure.
On how we're going to deliver the product. So it's simple. If you have a contractor that you're going to deliver to their shop, let's drop it off at the contractor shop. When they're going to go do the installation, they'll just drive it over.
Yep.
If we're bidding it directly to the end user, the university, and they're going to have their maintenance department install it, I think it's important to, as a mechanical rep, know that you're going to be answering a whole lot more questions to that university than if you had sold it potentially maybe to a contractor.
Sure.
Maybe I'm mistaken, but
Sure.
just being involved with it enough, that's kind of what I've seen. So taking that into consideration and taking into the consideration what your lead time is on fabricating the items, I think is very important. If it's a stock item or if it's a low commodity value that's a quick turnaround, then I would say you can give it a little less thought.
Sure.
If it's a long lead time on fabricating something, then yeah, I think you need to check more boxes off the list before you just allow anyone to pick it up for you.
Yep. All right. Well, I want to segue into my favorite part of the show. We started to do this in the first several episodes, and we kind of got away from it, but it's talking about nightmare projects. I have a logistics story. We didn't use Mars. I don't think we even had an option to use you guys on this, but we had a boiler go out at a school middle of winter, and the boiler company decided, we need to send you a new one. We know it's an emergency, so we're gonna hotshot this down to you. And so we had it all set up. Got notification that the driver had picked up the boiler in Canada. Day later, truck pulls up to where we need the boiler. They open the back of the truck, and the truck is empty. They forgot to actually put the boiler onto the truck before they closed the back door. And we ended up with no boiler and some very upset customers.
That's amazing. I've never actually heard it be that bad.
So it like you said before, it pays to make sure you got the right guys. But tell me maybe about 1 or 2 crazy stories you've heard with logistics in the past.
Low bridges are terrible. I've seen many of units get a haircut.
Oh gosh!
In Jersey and on that turnpike that is extremely, extremely dangerous. It could cause a major accident with many people hurt. But the hardships that would be involved with transporting some of the bigger units, that's always the ones that I see are the most painful.
Sure.
A, because it's got the biggest lead time, and B, it takes the right operator to ensure that the load is transferred correctly. So it's
We've this didn't happen to us, but it happened to someone in another state. They had a big chiller go under one of those low overpasses and just turn it into scrap metal.
Oh man, yeah, it's rough. And again, I say that New Jersey Turnpike because it's a frequent occurrence that all of a sudden you'll be 1311 and then you'll hit a low overpass and gone. Yeah, or all over the freeway is the problem. So,
well, Jim, I want to thank you for being on the show. Engineering Tomorrow podcast. Now, we really started originally focusing on commercial HVAC, but last episode we had an engineer on, and we're really looking to expand our show to all things construction and engineering. So again, thank you for being on the show. And if anyone wants to reach out and possibly work with you or get a quote, what is the best way to do that?
So always call. We're on the phone 24/7, but someone's always answering it. Phone number.
Yep, go ahead. What's your phone number?
636-536-6800. Or you can always email us. I'll just give you my email. It's Jim, Jimt, as in Tom, at Mars, MARRS, distribution.com. So it's Jim T at marsdistribution.com.
All right. Thanks for being on the show, and thank you all for listening, and we will see you next time.
Thanks. Bye.
You've been listening to Engineering Tomorrow, the podcast. For more insights and downloadable content, please visit our website at www.engineeringtomorrow.blog. Until next time, engineer for tomorrow, today.